Games Workshop writes rules backwards, not just back to front, but the entire logical framework is upside down. And if you think normal 40k rules are too complicated, if your playgroup has a rules lawyer who's just there to interpret the rules and to tell you how to play the game, this video is for you. We have spent the last 4 years, a little bit of 9th and all of 10th, learning about games design and rules writing, and most importantly, play testing just about everything you can about wargames to build the most clean, easy, fast, exciting, dynamic, satisfying version of 40k we could. Go to the description, click on the Discord invite, convince your playgroup to play it once, and I promise you will never go back to Games Workshop games. What do I mean by Games Workshop writes rules backwards? Let's take it from the top. When you write rules, you need to think about your target audience. If you're building a war game from scratch like we did, who do we want our target audience to be? Us. Our target audience is us and everyone like us. We are Timmies. We're just morons who buy the minis because they're cool and we like the lore and we want to just play the game. We don't care about we do care about the rules, but we don't care about like the delicate, intricate, deep mechanics of the English language. We don't care. We are going to get run over by rules lawyers at the table. We don't want to argue. There's a good chance we won't understand the rule even if we read them. We wait for the rules lawyer. Like when you learn a game, this is you. This entire game, this video and this channel, this entire game is for you. If you learnt Warhammer by being told how to play it instead of reading the rules and then playing it, then this is for you. Because if you open up the rules book of any Games Workshop game, it just unfurls like an infinite tax code. It's this thick. It's ridiculous. No one's reading that before they get to do something cool. That's how I learned. I showed up and somebody told me to put my models where they're supposed to go and then to go somewhere and to roll dice and then something blew up. That's actually how most playgroups work. No one wants to read rules. It's gross. We just want to dip our minis in Nuln Oil, stick them on the table, roll dice and make things explode. Armed with a technical writer, a very specific target audience of a bunch of idiots who don't want to have to sift through a tome of tax code just to play on, and years of time to iterate, we looked for a way to write a game so that it's actually legible, digestible, and has mechanical function. God, we did not get that right the first time, or the second, or the fifth. Eventually we came across a pattern of language that felt super natural, and when we started to do some research about it, well, we didn't do some research about it. We read a lot of other war games, and the answer wasn't found in another war game. It was found in modern games. What I'm talking about is this idea called permissive design. Permissive design. It's not a new thing. Modern board games have been doing it for fucking decades. The idea is, with the target audience in mind, of someone who is only opening the rules to figure out what to do while the game's ongoing, you can write the game as a string of events, like a method for a recipe, with as little opportunity for interpretation, especially creative interpretation, as possible. The rules should simply state exactly what to do as precisely as necessary in language designed for someone attempting to move the game to the next state in good faith. People are humans. We are lazy. If you ask the player to float a bunch of conditions in their head and try to find a solution to the problem, find something legal to do, of course, they interpret the conditions or the rules as conveniently as possible. You will subconsciously interpret conditions more loosely to make it easier to fulfill them. When I said that Games Workshop rules are upside down, what I'm saying is Games Workshop rules are full, and not just Games Workshop rules, like a lot of war games and a lot of board games seem to forget that they are not video games. In a video game, you can put an invisible wall down, and when the player does something you don't want them to, you just don't let it happen. There's just an invisible wall there. In a board game, you can't do that. The different ways that a player can move their models around and interpret targeting rules is a never-ending fractal if you start using this deadly word in rules writing, and that word is cannot and can't. If you start to define your games in terms of what they can't do, your players will come to expect you to tell them what they can and can't do in every moment. You will have to make sure that every conceivable action that you could do that you don't want players to do has a can't line. Does that even sound possible? This is completely backwards. Like, the biggest example I've got is the movement rules. The movement rules for 10th edition. There's something absolutely insane that it says. It's like a model cannot end its move somewhere where it cannot be placed. And that sentence is the shining example of this problem. How could you possibly have twisted your players' expectations to the point where you have to tell them that something that is physically impossible is not allowed? In our game, we just say, move your models along the battlefield surface and don't move any part of the model further where no part of the model can move further than its movement. That's the whole rule. And so if the question comes up, oh, can I walk through walls? The answer is, I don't understand. The answer is, what kind of question is that? The rule doesn't say that. The rules don't say that. Can I walk through a wall? You can try. Be my guest. If you want to smush your model through the terrain, I don't know, the laws of physics might have something to say about it. We have been doing this for years now. And at the start of it, our play group was stuck in the mindset of being told what they can and can't do. And so the first few times that we wrote our rules, like, don't get me wrong, our rules had cannots all through it as well, because we all had Games Workshop brain. That's just what rules are supposed to say. And then as we learnt more about rules writing, we started cutting this out. As soon as you say the word cannot, it implies that if you didn't say that, then it would have been true. So if you say you cannot move through obstacles, like models cannot phase through obstacles, then the implication is, well, if you didn't say that, then they would have been able to otherwise. That's the biggest problem. It's like, if the rule is just like, move your models along the battlefield surface, period, and then the next rule says models can't move through solid objects, like they can't phase through them, and then the implication is that the first sentence would have allowed that, and now you just don't want to allow that. So it's like, okay, let me go back and read the first sentence. I must have been missing something, because this sentence doesn't imply that I can move through obstacles anyway. So over time, we just stopped doing that. And I think only recently we've completely left all that behind, and it's been amazing. I've had so many good comments where it's just like, the rules just say what to do. If you just tell people what to do, you will find that we stop looking for ways to misinterpret the rules. You just learn to do exactly what the rules say on the tin and nothing else. That's the key. That's the key phrase. Do exactly what the rule says and nothing else. You know, that's the word. That's the most awful word in all of Games Workshop stuff. As soon as I see the word cannot, I know I'm about to read something that should have been written differently. Like, if you need players to not do something, you don't add a cannot. You rewrite the first rule so that it's extremely clear that whether or not they can and can't do that. It's just about making all these negatives into positives, and then you just have this big string of positives all the way down the game. I don't know, I hate the word cannot in rules writing. I'm so certain of this. I'm absolutely certain of this, 100%. All cannots do is add, because the other thing that cannot does is that if you start adding a bunch of conditions, because that's the other thing that Games Workshop has. If you read the Tau rules, the 10th edition Tau rules that talk about the conditions of being guided and doing the guiding or spotting or however the fuck that works, it's like 150 words of conditions, where in our rules, instead of this 150 word block of conditions, we just gave the units that need to do the spotting, the Marker Light's ability, and then they give all of the units, the enemy units, an ability that lets the Tau units get +1 to their hit rolls for shooting at them. And that's it. That's it. That's the whole rule. While enemy units are visible to this unit and it's not active, They get this ability, and the ability just says, if the Tau player shoots me, they're gonna have +1 to the hit rolls. That's the whole rule. The condition is visible. Moving on. Finished. End of story. And it works beautifully. The dynamics are beautiful. All the cannots do is add cognitive load on people, morons like myself. They just ask you to, that's what conditions are. You have to float all the conditions in your head at the same time and then imagine what a legal move would be underneath all these conditions. Instead of that, what if the rule just said, here, just do this? Duh. It's just so much unnecessary cognitive load on someone that's just trying to move the game along. And it also, all these cannots as well, by the way, depending on how you interpret them, all they do is add ammunition. They add fuel to the fires of any debate about rules interpretation that can break out. The word cannot in rules writing is a road to the infinite unfurling scroll of legal speak, attempting to define an airtight box where every possible interpretation is accounted for with a cannot statement. And you end up needing a third-party rules expert just to play 1v1s. You shouldn't need 3 people to play a war game. And you shouldn't need a rules expert to play the game. If you need someone who is an expert on the rules to play a game, that's a friggin' good sign that the rules are too complicated. 40k players who jump into 40k Reforged will open up the rules and realize that everything is super, super short. And the reason that the game is not telling you what you can't do is because it's written as a method, as a recipe. You just do exactly what the rule says and nothing else. It makes the game flow so much easier. It makes it so much more understandable. It makes it faster. We can get 4,000 point games, 2v2s done in like 3 hours. There's no deployment phase. What else is there? I got a list of surprises for 40k players somewhere here. Yeah, there's no deployment zone. Just moving into melee doesn't have this bunch of conditions and charge rolls and a whole phase. If you can use your movement to go within engagement range of enemy units, you just do. Period. Finished. Like, there's no extra step. You just do it. Advancing and shooting is also free, except on heavy weapons. And fallback is free as well. It's so weird that Games Workshop always knew that randomized movement was the way to go. But like, you know that we removed randomized movement from our war game for like 2 years. It took us 2 years to figure out that randomized movement is so important for interaction. So important. But Games Workshop executed on it so poorly that we thought it was the randomized movement that was the problem. No, it's not the randomized movement that's the problem. It was all of the conditions around it and all of the weird rules around the randomized movement. Everything should be moving a random amount every turn. Only in very specific spots where you want predictability do you ban the randomized movement. Randomized movement is a good thing. And therefore advancing and charging is free. You just roll your 2d6 and that's your new movement. You just walk around. It's fine. Just relax. You don't need neg 1 to hit. You don't need to be banned from going into melee. You just do your thing. It's fine. Your unit doesn't need to become a lobotomized servitor just because you took a step back from the melee. Like, that's free as well. You just don't get to advance, which is actually really important because it makes you predictable. And yes, it's all very complicated. Other surprises are like neg 1s and +1s stack normally. We thought about all this stuff on the way through. Just stack them is fine. You know, we want you to be able to stack these things and, you know, we don't overuse them. So you can't like just stack a million neg 1s and be only hit on 7s or something like that. Another little tidbit is that there's not really any invulnerable saves. There's a couple. There's a few. There's not really many because armor matters and cover matters and AP matters and all these things. Anyway, I guess that's all we have time for in this video. There's too many things to talk about. If you want to hear me yap more about this game, just please go watch the other videos on the channel. Apart from that, jump into the Discord, read the rules. They're all very, very simple. Like, not one-page rules, simple, but they're just very straightforward. The word that we use is concentrated. We boiled away all of the fluff rules. We're like, the rules don't represent the law. The rules are there to facilitate a certain dynamic on the table, and it has to be the exact dynamic that you want to get the aesthetic of the unit or faction, and then we just cut away everything else. And what you end up with is an extremely, extremely simple, straightforward system that leans into the strength of alternating activations and randomized movement, which is generating interesting tactical situations moment to moment. Anyway, before I look too much like a crazy person, see you on the next one.